let's talk about your productive capacity, your ability to actually do quickly the things that you need to do to get the results that you are after. Let me just give you a couple of examples of productive capacity, and so you understand what I'm talking about. A while ago, I was sitting with somebody. He wanted to do an interview with me. We did an interview. He did it on his phone. At the end of it, he said, pause for 1 minute. He then sent a text to his assistant, and he says, okay, we've got a podcast episode, we've got a YouTube video, we've got a blog post, and we've got 5 social media posts that just came out of what you just did with me. And I said, how do we do all that? And basically he has set up systems where he records it on his phone, sends that recording gets automatically transferred to a special drive. All he has to do is send a text off to his assistant, who then goes and pulls that file, gets it transcribed, turns it into a podcast, turns it into a video, turns it into a blog post, turns it into multiple social media posts, schedules it all out. And the only thing that the principal had to do was do the interview, do the recording in the first place. That's an amazing example of increasing your productive capacity by creating systems that make it work. Here's another thing. Some of you may live in an area where there is a grocer called Aldi in your area. Aldi is a great little chain, and I encourage you, it's a down market chain. There's going to be one brand of ketchup on the shelf, and it's probably going to be the Aldi brand of ketchup. It's a very small store. They do incredible volume. It's an amazing operation. I strongly suggest, if you've got uppity feelings, like I only shop at Trader Joe's, which, by the way, is like the two brothers, where one owns Aldi, one runs Trader Joe's. It's the same thought process going through these two things. But what Aldi does is they do things like, one of the things they've realized is that most people get frustrated waiting to check out in the grocery store. And so what they've done, and much of the human cost comes in stocking the checkout lines in the grocery store. So what they did is they went to all their suppliers and they said, we need bigger barcodes. And so instead of having a barcode that's this big on a package, it may be the entire side of the package. And so all it has to do is pass any part of that side of the package passes over the scanner, and they get a positive scan. And that enables, when you go to Aldi, watch the checkout process. Their hands are moving like crazy. Why? Because they get paid for their checkout speed. And so they incentivize exactly what they want to have happen. That's productive capacity. They looked at, what are the bottlenecks in the system? One of the bottlenecks is these little teeny tiny barcodes that everyone's trying to get to scan. They can fix that. They just go to the suppliers and say, we need bigger barcodes. And they solved the problem, significantly increasing the productive capacity for their company. So here's a way of looking at it. Everything that costs you time costs you profits in your business. I invite you to think about that clearly. Everything that costs you time costs you profits in your business. So how can I eliminate time? Especially, how can I eliminate time over and over again? So if there's a process that's going to be done once a week, and I can make that process be 20% more efficient, take 20% less time, by making that change once to make it 20% more efficient, it then pays off every single week as long as you continue to run that process. That's systems thinking. That's what I keep trying to talk about, the power of doing these things. So let's talk about a few specific things that you can do to start to increase your productive capacity. All right. This morning, I picked up the phone, went down in my car, picked up a brand new modem, and came back to double my internet speed. So for $20 a month, I now have double the internet speed that I used to have. Why would I do that? Well, because there's a bunch of things that I do that actually require fast internet. And I've noticed, especially as it's been dismally cold here in Wisconsin, some of the internet speeds are slowing. And so I wanted to have the faster speed. So when it slows, I've got what I need. $20 a month to have that, totally worth it. And especially if you do Zoom calls and people are constantly complaining about you breaking up on those calls, just go pay $20 more a month and get faster internet. Just do it. It's for the good of your business. It's for the good of your customers. Next, buy the best tools to do the job. So I realize that there are many things that I can do on Canva. There are many things that I can do with a cheap or maybe even free graphics creation tool. Yet my default tool, anytime I need to do anything graphically oriented, is I open up Photoshop. Why? Because it's the best tool for the job. And I believe that it's better to use the best tool because then you don't spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to do things than to use a cheaper tool. So start thinking about that. Yes, I can edit videos in Camtasia, but I've had so many times where I was limited by the fact that I could only put X number of things on the screen. I think it was 5 things on the screen, and I needed to have 7 tracks running at a given point in time. Then I just went to Adobe Premiere. Why? Because it's certainly one of the best. Whether it is the best or not, it would argue. Next, pay for a tool to do the job better or faster. There are many people in today's world, the SaaS world, software as a service world, that are creating tools specifically to do a certain job very well, very quickly. And oftentimes it's better to invest in that tool that is specifically designed just to do that job quickly than it is to even have the best tool someplace else that can do everything. Choose the one that will do the specific job that you need to have done incredibly well. So for example, keyword research. I use SEMrush. I use Href. I use SpyFu. I use multiple ones to be able to do that kind of work. Why? Because they're specifically designed to do that as opposed to having somebody go through by hand and do different specific tasks. While we're on the subject of paying for a tool to do the job better and faster, how about if you pay for a person to do the job? In other words, not you. So when I gave that initial example of my friend who just created the file, he didn't even have to take the file and email it to someone. All he had to do was create it, and it then went on from there. He had created and hired people to do the job that needed to be done to make it happen. How could you do that same thing? Another thing. So we've got tools to do the job incredibly well. We've got people to do the job incredibly well. Third thing is, hey, automate it. There are so many things we do on a regular basis that there are tools now that allow you to automate those functions, or maybe even hire a group of programmers to automate a certain function. And so all you have to do is press a button and it just does it in seconds. Let me give you an example of this. I was in one of my Facebook groups, and somebody came on and said, hey, I'm having to edit this thing where this guy used like about 150 times every 3 minutes. And I don't want to have to edit out all his likes. How do I approach the client and explain to them the cost of him saying like, and how do I handle that gap between him not wanting to pay me a lot, but him saying like all the time, so things got to get edited out of the videos? And I looked at it and I said, why are you worrying about talking to the client? Put it into Descript, Descript. Pay $30 a month. In other words, pay $15 a month more than the base plan. And you get a thing called something word. It's a tool that eliminates out on inessential words, the ums, the likes, the you knows, those kinds of things. And all you have to do is, if you're on that $30 a month plan, just say, I want to eliminate them. And in a podcast, which this was, so it's just audio, you simply press a button and they're all eliminated out of the recording instantly. So don't go bother to talk to the client. Don't go bother to spend a bunch of time and effort doing it. Use the best tool for the job. In this case, that best tool has automated the process of getting rid of those unnecessary words. Another reason why it's a good idea to use Descript. But separate from that, look for systems, tools, and people that will do your job. Next, set up systems to increase your productivity. So let me give you just what you'll probably think is a foolish example. So whenever I go live, I have one light right there, I have one light right there, and I have one light up there that's designed to light the bookcase back there, because I discovered that without that light, which actually doesn't actually light the bookcase, it bounces off the ceiling and then the ceiling lights the bookcase. What I discovered was when the bookcase was not lit, what ended up happening was the camera kept fighting in focus between my face and the background. And so I constantly had bad results come through in it. That's why I used 3 separate lights. The problem was every time I was ready to go live, I had to stand up, turn on that light, which requires me to reach around behind the back, not touch the 2 dials that are there, which increase things like the brightness and the warmth of the light, blue light versus yellow light. And it's actually somewhat hard to do with that light. So I had to reach around, miss those, and touch the little switch. And then I had to do the same thing on this light. And then I had to stand up and reach around behind and do that light up there. And then I had to do the 2. You probably don't recognize it, but see how right down there, see how the door is a little bit pink? Well, there's 2 lights back there that shine up on the bookcase and the door. Why? Because what they do is they allow the color balance of the lights to do a better job so that I have a more natural skin tone. All these are tricks that we do. But here's the point. I was turning on 5 separate lights every single time I wanted to go live. And so one day I said, why am I doing this? I could easily solve this. And so now right back there, right behind the camera, there is a plug bar. And on that plug bar, all the lights are plugged into that. And so all I have to do when I want to go live is turn on the plug bar. And 2 seconds later, the lights are all on. The camera has figured out how to balance between them all. And I no longer have to step up and turn on, and then at the end of it, turn off again all those lights. Yes, it was costing me, I don't know, 1.5 minutes a day to do that. But why not do something that can eliminate 1.5 minutes of time and 1.5 minutes of frustration every single time you go live? This is just an example, a very small thing that can help you to improve your productive capacity. The thing is, if you go through with a mindset that says, I'm going to go find those things, every time I find myself being a little frustrated, how can I just eliminate that? Create a system. Write down the list of exactly how to do it. There's this annual thing called taxes. And we're in the process. I'm trying to simplify this for my wife and I, because she runs her own business and I run mine, of making lists of everything that's got to get done to get the taxes out. And so that she can go through and do those, and I can go through and do those, and we can get somebody else to go through and do those, and just make that work. Okay, here's another one. By the way, I invite you, as you go through this, what are some of the things like the light bar I just told you about? or the taxes that I just told you about, or the shipping the video off that you've got a team working on? What are some of the things that you either are doing or see that you could do to increase your productive capacity? Put those in the chat because they'll help all of us. All right? All right. Here's another thing. Use redundancy to simplify your life. So pre-COVID, I traveled, I don't know, once, twice a month. I'm not a road warrior by any means, but I was on the road somewhat frequently. And what I kept discovering that I would arrive at the hotel and would have forgotten something. And so then I got to deal with how do I solve that problem? And so what I started doing was I started creating packing lists of all the things that I needed to pack each time. And then I realized, why have a packing list? Why not just pre-pack everything? And so I have 2 sets of toiletries. So I have a razor, toothbrush, toothpaste, the medications that I take, everything. I have 2 sets of them. One that sits on my counter in my bathroom that I use to do my daily toilet. And I have another one that is just in a bag that all I have to do is pick up that bag and drop it in my suitcase, and I know that it's there. I don't even have to go through it or anything else like that. If I'm ever running out of something, I just make a list that as soon as I get home, I refill that thing, and so it's just done. So by having that redundancy, here's the other thing. I have sitting by my bed, I have the chargers for my cell phone and my iPad and my watch and all the different things that need to get charged. And in my backpack, there is another set of every single one of those cords. Why? Because I kept finding myself arriving in Phoenix and I didn't have the cord to charge my X, whatever X was. And so I kept having to spend time and energy thinking about it. Why not just spend $7 and buy another cord and always have it in my backpack, which always travels with me, and so that I always just have it? This is productive capacity work. How can you do the same thing for your life and your business? Well, we're on that subject of the redundancy in those things is create permanent setups. Now, I'm sure that there are some of you who watch my videos that say, he's always in front of the exact same background. There's always that plant and that bookcase and that door and the whiteboard, and it's always the same. Why can't he move around to other backgrounds? Well, the reason why is because I've got 3 lights plus 2 lights. I've got a microphone. I've got a camera. Everything is set up. I have a permanent setup where I shoot videos. Yes, maybe I should move it someplace else and put it in front of a beautiful fireplace with an orchid. But I don't have a beautiful fireplace and orchid in a place where I can rely on it being quiet and I can rely on being able to do videos there every day. That when people come to visit us, I don't have to tear everything down. I want something that is just there every time. And the reason why is because I've discovered that when I have to set it up, I don't do video. I have a whole video studio in my basement, but the problem is I have to tear it down every time company comes because that's the guest bedroom. And so what I discovered was I kept tearing it down and then not putting it back up again and then thinking I've got to go spend an hour to put it up in order to do a video. And so I wasn't shooting video. It was better for me to create a permanent setup in an ugly background to increase my productive capacity and to remove barriers to me making things happen. That's what I mean when I say productive capacity. Increase your ability to do things quickly and well. And I'm going to bring up one last thing, which is one of my pet peeves. You may not like this one, okay? I constantly see people struggling, trying to do world-class work on a computer that's 10 years old. that's slow, that doesn't have the hard drive, that doesn't have the processor, that doesn't have the speeds, that doesn't have the camera, that doesn't have the microphone, all those different elements, I believe one key part of your productive capacity is to buy yourself a better computer. Buy yourself a computer that will actually do what you need it to do. I don't have the money to do that. Okay, I understand. But here's the thing. You're probably spending the amount of money you need to put an amazing computer on your desk in things like coffee and clothing and eating out. How about if you just don't do coffee, clothing, and eating out? And I realize COVID times, maybe you're not doing that. How about if you just not do that stuff for 2 to 3 months and buy yourself a killer computer that enables you to have the productive capacity that you need? In other words, live without some luxuries for a bit so that you can have the capacity you need to produce at world-class level. That's what we're asking people to do. We're asking people to step in and become world-class. And you can't become world-class if you're working with old equipment that just can't get there. And while we're on that subject of better computer, there's oftentimes things. So one of the reasons why I have a PC, not a Mac, is because I really dislike Steve Jobs' obsession with the closed system. So I yesterday put a new USB card in my computer because I was maxing out my ability to run all these things that you see around me off of my computer, and I was starting to get errors. And so I opened up my computer and I put a new card in there. I have a new hard drive coming fairly soon because my hard drive is starting to make some noises. I'm worried about that. I'm not preaching against a Mac here, but one of the things that I find Mac people struggling with all the time is I can't create video because I don't have enough hard drive storage in this expensive computer that I bought. Well, you know what? Solve that. Go buy yourself an amazing hard drive so that you never have to worry about that again. In other words, there's oftentimes better to go spend a little bit of money and solve your problem for months to come than it is to struggle with that problem for months to come. Best place to spend your money is on your productive capacity. Think about that and think about how you can increase that. And by the way, I would rather not have a little bit of recreational time and have the killer computer. In other words, I would trade a nice vacation for a killer computer, because the nice vacation is going to refresh you for a week or so when you come back to work afterwards. Killer computer could do you good for 2 to 3 years. I know you're not liking this, but think about it. All right. So please share in the comments some of the things that you either are doing or want to do or see other people doing to increase productive capacity. That will help all of us. This is Don Crowther saying, just go do this stuff.